So, hi everybody, welcome to this edition of Finance Friday, where I have the very impressive Andre Benayoun, who is a JD in international taxation, partner at a big national firm, one of the smartest people I've probably ever met, especially in this industry, and very lucky to have him come on. We're going to talk a little bit about what U.S. citizens need to worry about when they're dealing with foreign stuff abroad, right? And it's a little vague. I would say the number one thing I get asked about is the FBAR. Do you want to talk about what that is a little?
Yes. First of all, FBAR is foreign bank account reporting, not to be confused with FBAR, which I can't probably say live. But in any case, the FBAR it's actually not an IRS requirement. It's a Treasury requirement that's looking to look at anti-money laundering rules. Therefore, if you're a U.S. person and you have quote unquote financial assets, which include bank accounts and other things that are not in the United States, you may be required to report those every year. They're due with your tax return, but they go to Treasury. And if you don't do them when you're supposed to, you could be in big trouble. Mostly if you willfully don't do it. But even if you are accidentally not reporting it, you should probably try to get that fixed so that you don't get hit with the penalties that arise from it.
Okay, so big trouble. What is that exactly? How bad? Like, are you going to jail?
If it's willful, you technically can go to jail. There is
really?
indeed a potential criminal penalty for willfully trying to avoid telling the IRS that you've got a lot of money offshore. But if it's an accident, which is what most of the time we see, there is a $10,000 penalty that can apply. But if you get the right person, somebody like me, we can talk to the IRS proactively before they find out, and the Treasury proactively before they find out. And we can come to them and say, hey, we made a mistake, we want to fix it. And that can often reduce or eliminate a lot of those penalties and issues. But don't wait till the IRS finds you. It's much more difficult to tell the IRS I made a mistake when they found you first.
Okay, so if you're just a little clueless, which many people are, the tax code is so complicated. When you get into the foreign stuff, it's like out of control how complex it is. So there's hope, right? As long as you're not like trying to evade reporting and whatnot, we can hopefully get some of those penalties abated, because those are rough. And you said bank accounts and other assets. What kind of assets would fall into that kind of reporting?
An excellent question. So it has to be a financial asset. That's the key word. So for example, a U.S. person who owns real estate in their own name outside the U.S., that real estate is not a financial asset. But stock is. So a lot of times U.S. people don't want to own the real estate directly. They want a limited liability entity to own the real estate. Well, once you put the real estate into an entity, that stock's a financial asset, and you do have to report that. So that can be an issue. Any kind of stock in any foreign company.
Okay, so what if you own real estate in your own name, but you rent it out as a rental?
Dun, dun, dun. That's a good question. It's not in that case a financial asset that has to be reported on an FBAR, and we didn't get there yet, but you have to report that rental income in the US. I know that it was earned outside the US, but I find a lot of people think, oh, the money I made outside the US, why do I have to tell the IRS? The answer is because the IRS taxes US people on worldwide income. It doesn't make a difference where you earned it. Now, if you pay tax in the local country, we can get a credit to reduce what you pay here. But if you never report it, you're in the same boat as those FBAR people, and you need to call me, and we need to fix your returns before the IRS notices first. Otherwise, the penalties are worse.
Okay, so yeah, sometimes I get those questions like, well, it's not in the U.S. Do I really even have to report it? And apparently the answer is yes, you do. And then if you're not lucky enough to live in Florida, you probably have to pay state income tax on it as well if you live in some income tax state, I would imagine.
It depends on the state, but yes.
Really? Depends on the state. I'm guessing California, they want all your money.
You know the answer to that one. Yeah.
The answer is yes, they do want all your money. Okay, so FBAR, who needs to file that? Is it any bank account? Is it your balance
So
at the end of the year? How do you even know if you need to file?
okay, so the total of the foreign assets you have is under 10,000 US dollar at any, at all points during the year. You don't have to file. But they want to know all your foreign assets. If you have 9 bank accounts and each one has $2,000, that totals 18 for us math people, and that's more than 10, right? So, that's still a problem. So you can't say I'm going to like put everything into tiny amounts and then get under the threshold. So and it's not like an end of the year thing. So you can't have like $1 million come in and then the day before the year ends, like take it all out somewhere and say, oh, well, I didn't have this at the end of the year. So it really is like a daily balance thing that you have to be careful of. But it's a good question.
All right. Yeah, that one I always have people who are very confused. They're like, but at the end of the year there was nothing left. All right. Is there anything special, in the United States we have 2 bordering countries. Do we have anything special especially if you live near those borders? Or down here we have a lot of Canadians, right? Is there anything that people who are U.S. citizens who have some dealings in those countries need to be aware of? Or is there anything special or good that they can take advantage of?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I mean, we did have NAFTA, which is sort of changed now, but there are U.S. income tax treaties. So these are treaties where the government of the U.S. and the government of a foreign country get together and they get their tax geeks to sit down, just like we're doing right now, maybe a little more formal than we're doing right now, and they talk over.
Geek? Hold on.
A tax geek. It's a good thing.
All right,
fine.
We'll let it go.
Thank you. But they get together and they negotiate various topics and they form an income tax treaty. And the treaty will protect both sides, either U.S. citizens doing stuff in Canada or Canadian citizens doing stuff here. They protect both sides and both countries agree to it. Same thing with Mexico. We have a treaty with Canada and Mexico. So there are abilities to sort of say, well, I'm sort of doing work in this other country, but in the case of Canada and Mexico, we have lots of extra benefits because we're so closely linked geographically that there's, added benefits. Like if you cross the border, you don't always have to pay U.S. tax. If you're, let's say, a Mexican resident and you drove up, you get sort of a lot of benefits with how much it takes of activity here before you got to file a U.S. return. But even if it's not Canada and Mexico, we have a treaty with a lot of countries that you want to be mindful of as a U.S. person because that may provide you the kind of benefits that you didn't realize you would get if you didn't have that treaty.
Oh, okay. I actually didn't know most of that, so I'm glad I asked.
My pleasure.
Okay, so something I get asked somewhat frequently, it's usually by people who are in like more cosmopolitan areas like cities and whatnot, when you're a U.S. citizen, setting up a company like in the Cayman Islands or somewhere in the Caribbean, like why is that so fascinating? Is there actually some benefit to doing that?
No, but people think there really is.
That's really do. So I want to set up a business in the Cayman Islands. I'm like, why? I don't understand why you want to do that. But okay, so that's not actually helpful.
Well, here's the theory. The theory is if I make a lot of money as a U.S. person, then I got to give a lot of it to Uncle Sam, and that's not great. But if I set up a Cayman company and my Cayman company makes all the money, then people have this misnomer that the company can make the money and I don't have to tell Uncle Sam about it. The problem is that that's not actually how it works, and that you do have to tell Uncle Sam. And even if the Cayman company does not give you the money, like a dividend, you might still have to pay tax on it when it's earned by the Cayman company based on a whole bunch of crazy rules that, as you said earlier, are complicated because international tax is a bit complicated. So that's the reason.
Okay, so people think like, all right, I'm going to get out of the taxes, and the reality is it's just not true.
Yeah.
Not in this day and age. I don't know. Maybe at some point in the past that was a thing you could do, but not anymore.
It's much harder. You used to be able to. Even today, you might be able to get a better rate than earning it directly, not with Cayman, but maybe some other countries. The problem is even that's changing. So, you and I spoke before a little bit about the new green book that's come out. And this is the Biden tax proposals for which he's looking to institute some changes. And even in there, they're talking about a sort of minimum 15% global tax, so that even if the countries are not taxing certain rates, you'll have to sort of pay tax. So there really is a push by the U.S. government to say, you can't hide money offshore anymore. Everyone's got to pay tax.
I mean, it's a global economy, but you don't get to keep the tax in the state or the country that you're generating it in. I guess my one other question would be, what about like U.S. citizens that move abroad? What is
Yeah.
their responsibility here to the U.S.? Can they get out of taxes or file differently? 'Cause sometimes people, I get contacted somewhat frequently, people who are like, my company is moving me like to London for a year. What do I do?
Yeah, it's a good question. And part of it is, are you moving there short term, long term? Are you giving up a US citizenship when you do it? Or you're just saying, no, I might go live abroad, but I'm really still a US citizen. I just don't want to live here at the moment for whatever reason. So depending on those facts can depend upon what you should do. But as a US citizen, if you live anywhere in the world, that does not stop you from needing to file US tax returns. You still have to file them every year, no matter where you live. However, there are some benefits you may be able to get, including some of the treaty we talked about treaties. If you move to a place with a treaty, there's some benefits there. But also there's something called the foreign earned income exclusion, which without sounding super fancy says that maybe the first 110,000 of like wages you make outside the US as a US citizen but living abroad, you don't have to pay US tax on that as long as you pay tax over there, and you can fill out some forms and on your tax return. So yes, there are some changes to your return, but there are some benefits out there for US people who move abroad. It could change if you're giving up citizenship and other stuff, but maybe we'll save that for another time.
For another, definitely. That's probably much more complicated. All right, that was so much fantastic information. I hope people understand that in this very, internet age of nobody is unfindable, nothing is untraceable, you gotta pay your taxes.
I agree. You want to pay as little as legally possible, but you do want to pay your taxes.
Because those penalties are bad. They're bad, and
And
don't get in
getting
trouble.
worse.
Don't get in trouble with the IRS. All right, so my last question. Andre, I've known you for a few years. Do you have any like strange hobbies that stranger than mine maybe that I don't even know about?
I don't know about stranger than yours, and I only say that because my wife does a lot of the same things. You may know that I've done martial arts for many years. I have quite a few black belts in martial arts.
Oh, multiple.
I do. I train Kung Fu, Ninjutsu, Taekwondo. So when I'm not, beating up on
I
the
didn't know you
IRS,
had multiple. I didn't know
I
that.
do, yeah.
Wow.
When I'm not beating up on the IRS, I'm beating up on
everybody else.
helpless friends. Yes.
All right, fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Andre. We're going to put your contact info when we post it. Anybody who's got like simple or even complex, and probably more so the complex issues with foreign taxation, there's nobody better. Like, this is number one, Andre. All right, guys, thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Such a pleasure.